Hello again, class. Mr. O'Rourke again. Today we're going to be talking about the Gupta Empire, which lasted for roughly 200 to 300 years, around the same time as the Roman Empire and the Han empires of China and obviously Rome, that we will be discussing a little later in the course. We'll be coming back and comparing the Guptas with them to see how they were similar. Okay, so you have on the board in front of you a map. You'll see how the Gupta Empire was the light blue on the map, and then they had tributary states, and then farther to the north you had another empire that was kind of a competitor empire. So not as big a piece of land as the Mauryans, but still a significant portion of India, and really the place where most people live, the area between the Himalayas and around the Ganges River. Okay, so I'm going to start you off by asking a question, and what I'd like to do is just write this down on your notes page, your answer. What is a golden age? Take a second, stop the tape, and write down your answer. Okay, welcome back. A golden age is simply a period of time or a period of great achievement in government, the arts, sciences, and technology. Generally, these are areas accompanied by great times of peace, though often there is some warfare involved in the form of conquest. We're going to be studying a lot of golden ages. We're going to talk about the Guptas. We're going to talk about the Han. We're going to talk about the Greeks, the Romans, the Byzantines, all sorts of empires, all up through 1750. Later on in your times, you will talk about American golden ages and other golden ages of history. Okay, so some key facts on the Gupta Empire. As you can see, there's a slightly different map showing them taking a little bit more area down on the eastern coast of India, and having a little bit more conquest. So the Gupta dynasty lasted from 8320 until about 550. So roughly 230 years or so. Now, the Gupta Empire ran its government kind of loosely, gave power to the local leaders, but and united much of the Indian subcontinent, and it ensured peace and prosperity. Hinduism plays an extremely strong role in the Gupta society and in the cultural life. Scientists and mathematicians make many important discoveries and advances, some of which we still use today, and you're still learning about to use today. After about 200 years, you have a period where there's several weak rulers. They're invaded from the north by the Huns, among others, out of Central Asia, and eventually the empire falls. Okay, so a little timeline for you. Beginning in 318 AD, you have Chandra Gupta. He is the founder of the Gupta Empire, and he extends his domain from the northern India capital down through Patna and the other areas. Around 350, Samudra Gupta extends the Gupta kingdom to Assam, Deccan, and Malwa. This is south and east. 8390, Chandra Gupta II extends the kingdom into Gujarat, which is more on the western side of India. 450, Kumar Gupta builds the first monastic university at Nalanda, which is near Patna, the capital city. This is the first university in India, one of the oldest in the world. Around 455, the Huns raid the Gupta Empire, the northern parts of Punjab and Kashmir, which are now along the border between modern-day India and Pakistan. These are the same Huns that invade India, though it's after Attila. Attila was around the 50 years earlier. 465, the king Harasena begins work on what are known as the Ajanta caves. There's some amazing cave paintings and cave artwork that you will learn some about next week. 499, Hindu mathematician Aryabhata writes the Aryabhativa, the first book of algebra. Okay, this is the guy who actually invents it, though the Arabs are often given credit. Aryabhata invents a lot of the stuff that the Arabs then not really steal, but export into their area, and then eventually through trade with the West, it gets into Europe. He invents the number system that we use today and the concept of zero. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. Okay. By about 510, the Huns are dominant across Central Asia down into Europe, and they attack and conquer much of northern India. And by 528, the empire collapses under the threat of numerous barbarian invasions. It's just an ongoing cycle that they're not able to overcome. Okay, so after 500 years of Mauryan rule, the Guptas came to power. Both empires united India, and they rose in the north and eventually spread southward. Geography benefited both. The Himalayas and the Hindu Kush and the other mountains protect them from invaders from the north. The Ganges and Indus rivers provide fertile farmland and water. And so the Gupta period, for the most part, is one of peace and prosperity, except for their conquests. Okay. Their government. They built a spectacular court at Pataliputra, the capital city. They ran a very efficient central government, which allowed trade to prosper and provides the stable groundwork for which all these advances in learning and the arts can happen. Okay. Gupta rulers also give the power to local leaders. They run it kind of almost like a federal system like the U.S. has today. They're elected by the local leaders, elected by the merchants and artisans of the village. Usually there's a headman with a council in the villages, and the most respected people in the village serve on the council, probably also the wealthiest. At first, women are allowed to serve on these councils, but eventually Hindu law placed greater restrictions on women, excluding them from participation. This is a common thread we will see throughout history, how women power is taken from women after maybe they originally had it. The caste system plays a huge role in the development of Gupta society, and it's a major influence on village and family life because everybody's supposed to live within their caste and follow those caste dharma and do what they're supposed to do. Okay, village life is the center of Indian life. It's usually a cluster of homes of earth and stone that were built around with fields around it where the farmers grew their crops. They usually ran their own affairs, and as long as they paid their taxes, the central government left them alone. Governed by the caste and the traditions, and it creates a very stable society. People of the highest caste have the strictest rules, designed to keep them from being contaminated by the people of the lower caste. And you'll see on the right just another diagram of how the Gupta society ran and the caste system ran. You see the Brahmins and the priests are the mouth or the head of the statue. The warrior class is the arms. The Vatraya, the traders, are the legs. The Sutra are the feet. They're the servants the ground is built on. And then underneath are the outcasts or the untouchables that are basically the dirt between your toes. Okay, untouchables are the outcasts. They live harsh lives. They're given jobs considered impure, such as cleaning streets, digging graves, cleaning up after livestock. Okay, they live apart from other members of society. Here's a man who's living in a manhole. Okay, wealthier people usually lived in joint families, an extended family where you had parents, children, grandparents, everybody living together. The father is the dominant figure or the eldest male of the household, and he has very much authority. He can tell his brothers and sisters or children who they're going to marry, and most of them lived in arranged marriages. Most of the Indian children worked in the family business or trade. They worked in the farms, whatever else the family did. Now, like I said before, this Gupta Empire period is a time of great scientific and artistic contributions. Okay, it's an environment of peace and prosperity which allows for these to happen. Okay, the education system is in place. They have both Hindu and Buddhist schools where students learn math, medicine, physics, and languages. This type of thing is only possible when you have a time of peace and prosperity. During warfare or during hard times, when there's drought and famine and things like that, people are more concerned about basic needs. They don't devote attention to learning and to creating things. They're more focused on keeping food on the table or protecting themselves from invaders. Okay. Indian mathematicians, who I mentioned a little bit earlier, Aryabhata is the most famous. He's the inventor of zero. Okay. He develops a number system based on 10. They also developed the Arabic symbols that we use today, okay? And the Arabs, through trade, bring them to the rest of the world. This Aryabhata, he's the founder of astronomy. He's the guy who figured out where a lot of the planets were. He figured out the circumference of a circle. He kind of approximated pi before the Greeks approximated pi. So he's a fabulous mathematician, and we owe him for the concept of zero. So the next time you get one of those, here's who you have to blame for it. If you don't like algebra class, this is the guy. He invented it. Okay, Gupta Physicians were pretty remarkable and pretty far ahead of the curve, especially for what was going on in Europe. And went on with Europe over time. Okay, they used a lot of herbal remedies, which are popular today, and other things like natural things to treat illnesses. They were able to set bones. They could repair facial injuries with plastic surgery. It's pretty remarkable how they could do this and without the help of anesthetics and things like this. They also vaccinated people against smallpox. It takes Europeans almost another 1,000 years to figure out that you can vaccinate people against smallpox. Europeans don't have regular vaccinations against smallpox until really the Napoleonic Wars or the 18th century. 18th and 19th century is smallpox not finally eradicated in the West, but the Guptas had been doing it for 1,000 years before. Okay, they built these fabulous stone temples in cities. Okay, you have Hindu temples. Right here is a Hindu temple. Slightly different is the Buddhist stupa down here. Okay, it's more of a dome structure. These are some of the more famous ones. You have the Sanchi Stupa and the Kanjaharo Temple, which are ruins of these great houses of worship. Okay, they also wrote fables and folk tales, and they wrote them in the Sanskrit language, and they were collected and recorded. Eventually, these stories were passed on to Persia, Egypt, and Greece. You have this is a diagram of the Sanskrit language right here of what some of the symbols meant. Sanskrit's the earliest language we were able to decipher from India. Okay, so just to kind of recapture, Gupta Empire, you had a whole lot of stuff going on. It all stems from the fact that you have an efficient central government. This is the key to all of it. Okay, allows for advances in math, Arabic, what are now known as Arabic numerals, and the concept of zero. Medicine, plastic surgery, vaccinations, architecture, building stone temples for worship. Okay, literature, just a couple of ones there. Kalidasa, the Indian, is known as the Indian Shakespeare. Okay, philosophers, they were the first to propose the idea of a round Earth. Europe didn't get around to that for another 1,000 years. They create the game of chess. They introduced the horoscope based on the solar system because they were so advanced in astronomy, and their abilities in math and enabled them to learn a lot about astronomy and to figure stuff out. So now, what are we going to do? All right, there is a link to a quiz on Edmodo. It will open in your Google Drive account. You have to log into Google to get credit because that's the only way I'll know whose paper it is if you log in, because it will tell me who you are when you're filling out your thing. It's 5 questions, 4 multiple choice straight off the Regents, and then a short answer question where you're going to tell me whether the Gupta era was a golden age and why. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you again.